it's not just your like 9 to 5 job, it's your whole life. It's, how you rest, how you recover, how you fuel your body, the psychology behind it. And then obviously on top of that is all the training that you have to do. So, it's not just 1 year of, okay, the Olympics is here, let's start training for it. It's years and years of putting all the different elements in place and growing as an athlete physically and mentally, and learning all these, key learnings that you take through every championship and every competition and bringing them together. Well, I suppose I never knew that it would be my career. I think I fell into athletics as a kid, just going to try a summer camp at my local track. And, I was super active. I loved doing all the different events. I liked trying everything. I liked being competitive. I liked the adrenaline of trying to push myself harder. And then, gradually it became something that I became very interested in. I just loved doing. It was a great hobby for me. I wanted to train a little bit more after school, and I wanted to enter competitions, and it was just this gradual progression into, elite sport essentially. So I suppose I never knew that it would be a career, but I loved it from the start. I loved all the elements of sport, and wanted to see how far it could take me. I think that as a young girl, I do think it's changed more now, and for the better as well. But I think that as a young girl, I was 9 or 10 years old, I knew of certain athletes, I knew certain sports people, but they were mainly men, because like you say, that's who you saw competing on the television. The ad campaigns, the posters, it would be mainly male athletes featured, and you really had to, as a young girl, really sift through all of that to find those key women that really inspired you. And for me, Denise Lewis was one woman that I, seeked out and found at the top of her game. She was an incredible heptathlete and, Olympic gold medalist. And she was doing this event that I was being introduced to. And it gave me this feeling of, wow, this is what she can achieve. This is what you can do in an event like this. And I got to see it visually, which made a massive impact. But I think for a lot of girls, you don't often have those role models like readily available. They're so hard to see them, whether that's on TV or tournaments or championships that you go to. It's mainly kind of dominated by a male voice. And I think, again, that's something that's changing. I think now we see much more, female athletes spoken about, like the Lionesses, amazing victories that they've had, the England women's netball team, and, female track and field athletes who are doing incredible things. And we're hearing their journey and their story. And I think that's what helps to inspire young girls to get into sport, but also to believe that there's a future within sport as well for them. It's not just your like 9 to 5 job, it's your whole life. It's, how you rest, how you recover, how you fuel your body, the psychology behind it. And then obviously on top of that is all the training that you have to do. So, it's not just 1 year of, okay, the Olympics is here, let's start training for it. It's years and years of putting all the different elements in place and growing as an athlete physically and mentally, and learning all these, key learnings that you take through every championship and every competition and bringing them together. You pay so much attention to every tiny detail, and rightly so, how you're fueling your body and all the different elements. But actually, as a female athlete coming into a sport for the first time, there's no guidance and understanding around how you should, tackle your period and understand your hormones in relationship to the way you train and the way you perform. It's kind of just assumed that you just, accept and just get on and make it work for you. There's no real guidance. And I think you're right. I think that's because of a lack of studies. It's hard to understand the female body and female hormones. It's complex. It takes time. It takes money and funding. Therefore, it's not an area that is heavily invested in. But also, it's an area that has a massive difference. And as a female athlete, you know that you feel different at different times of the month. You'll perform better at certain times of the month. And you also know the psychological impact that it has on you as an athlete, just knowing that you're going to be on your period 2 days before a big competition, or you're in a certain phase just before a big competition, but you just have to almost deal with it in your own way. There's not this whole structure and support system to help you get the best out of yourself. And I think that's something that I now look back on and think, wow, that is an area that could have had a really big impact on just giving me rounded context to the way I trained and the way I performed. And I think it's an area that definitely needs more time and energy put into it. When you come to tournaments, competitions, the Olympics, unfortunately, there's no case where you can say, oh, actually, it's not a good time for me. Can we change it? That's never going to happen. But it can give you power through strategies. So if you know you're in a certain phase, you know how to fuel your body a bit better, to rehydrate, to just mentally be prepared, as opposed to getting there on the day, oh, I'm on my period, everything's going to fall apart. That's not the case. It's having control and strategies that can work around those phases that you're in. And again, just knowing that you're in control, that you're in the driving seat more than anything. From moving away from an elite model, I think that, everyday women, whether you've got, a triathlon or a marathon that you're preparing for, or you just want to keep fit, you find a way of getting into a routine of exercising, something that works for you, something that you enjoy. So you might be the kind of woman that enjoys running, and you run every day. And actually, you can very quickly forget the importance of rest and recovery, because time is limited. There's so much going on in our lives, and you're cramming in bits of exercise wherever you can, as often as you can, forgetting that actually those moments where you're resting, recovering, having an extra hour in bed in the morning instead of going for a run are really key moments in helping you become healthier, fitter, stronger, and more mentally prepared for, the load of your day. And from an elite perspective as well, that's something that I learned over a long period. You want to push yourself all the time to be better and better and better. But actually, you get to a point where it can be counterproductive and you pick up injuries. And actually, rest and recovery is absolutely key to performing. I think it's understanding what is exercise. I think often we think that exercising 6 times a week is, like I said, hard 5Ks or 10Ks, or being in the weights room or in the gym for an hour or 2 hours. That is exercise, but that's not everyone's form of exercise. So a long walk, or a few reps up a hill that take 5 minutes, that's exercise. I rarely exercise for an hour at a time. I'll do 20-minute bursts of circuits, or a 10-minute glute exercise. I just break it up so it's little bits, and that would equate to 6 sessions a week. It's not a long amount of time that I'm doing them, but it is a form of exercise that's stimulating my body in a different way and keeping me active and keeping me moving. So I think it's about reframing how you look at sessions and exercise, and knowing that you don't have to be in a gym for 2 hours to qualify that as one session. And I think we've learned that more than ever through COVID and lockdown, that there's so much you can do at home. And also I think for mums and dads with young kids, they're seeing you exercise as well. That's giving them something that's going to be, ingrained in them, that, oh, mummy, daddy, they exercise, they enjoy it, they're healthy. Hopefully they will maintain that healthy relationship with exercise as well. And I'm the same, I'll do bits of yoga in the living room with my daughter, and she'll be showing me all the exercises and really taking it all in. I think that's, an added bonus of being able to squeeze in, some form of exercise where your children can actually see you doing it. I've been on my own journey of understanding as a sportswoman, going through pregnancy, postnatally, and out the other side, as to how my body changed and the transformations. And it kind of set me on this whole journey of, actually, as women, we go through these all these key phases, whether it's puberty, pregnancy, postnatally, perimenopause, menopause, where our hormones are doing something completely different and our bodies are changing so much. But I still feel that there's a lack of understanding. I'm still learning so much about my body and how it's changed, even being an athlete before, where you're so in tune with your body. So I think that there's definitely a piece where more women can feel more empowered to move their bodies in the right way, to fuel their bodies, and to almost go internally, not so focused on what the rest of the world's doing, what's the latest, exercise fad or nutrition. Let's look internally to us as individuals, because we're changing all the time, and give ourselves context to understand what is right for us. And the way we move our body. It's so hard because there's so much out there, and you're almost bombarded with all this information, and it's hard to know what angle to go in and what's going to be right for you as an individual. And women's hormones aren't, they're so individual. It's not one size fits all. There's so many differences within each woman, and I think it's about firstly understanding yourself, so being able to track certain elements of your cycle or your nutrition or your sleep habits, and having it all in one place where you can actually see those changes, those subtle changes, and it gives you real context to who you are. And I think once you have that base layer, then you can start picking out the bits that suit you and the elements that you need to change and adapt slightly. And everything that we aim to do at Jennis is all about, well, how do we just educate, give you as much information about your hormones, your cycle, and the personal differences that we face, and a community where we can talk about our periods really openly. I think for me, this whole mission around women's health and women's hormonal health is so important. I think that it's an area that more and more women are aware of, but it's not mainstream yet. And I think for 5 years' time or longer, I want it to be something that every woman knows about their hormonal health, their hormonal journey. They know how to get the best out of themselves. They know how to move their body in the right way. And I hope that Jennis can be a big part of making those changes.